She told me $50,000 was too much to save my life. She had a party to plan, a $100,000 party for an 8-year-old. She thought I was finished. She was about to find out that some fires burn hottest just before they go out. The air in Dr. Miller's office was thin, sterile. It smelled like rubbing alcohol and old paper. It was the smell of routine checkups, flu shots, blood pressure readings. Not this. I sat in the stiff vinyl chair, feeling every one of my 65 years. My name is Thomas, 40 years as a government clerk. My life was orderly, quiet, predictable. Until that Tuesday morning, Dr. Miller usually joked. Today he was grim. He kept adjusting his glasses, staring at the scans on his screen. The scans of my heart. They looked like grainy storm clouds. "Thomas," he began, his voice low, too low. I wish I had better news. My stomach tightened. I knew this was coming. The fatigue wasn't just old age. It was something worse. "It's your heart," he said, turning the screen toward me. "Severe aortic stenosis. The valve is almost completely blocked." Blocked. The word echoed in the small room. It felt heavy. Final. My retirement was simple. I gardened. I read. I visited my grandson Leo. I wasn't ready for the end. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's the procedure? How do we fix it?" "Normally valve replacement," Dr. Miller explained. "But in your case, it's complicated. You need a specialized, minimally invasive procedure. It's safer. It's more effective. But—" He paused. The silence hung heavy. The but was always the hard part. And this but felt like a mountain I couldn't climb. "But it's expensive," I finished for him. He nodded slowly. "Yes, and your insurance won't cover this specific technique. They classify it as elective." "Elective?" I scoffed. "Living is elective now?" "I know, it's absurd. The out-of-pocket cost, Thomas, is $50,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. It knocked the breath right out of me. That was nearly 2 years of my pension. My savings were meager. Enough for emergencies, but not this kind of emergency. This was a catastrophe. And if I don't have it?" I asked, the words tasting like ash. Dr. Miller sighed. He looked away. He didn't want to say it. "With a blockage this severe, a major cardiac event is imminent," he said gently. "I'd say 6 months, Thomas. Maybe less. 6 months. The room seemed to shrink. I thought of Mary, my wife, gone 5 years now. I thought of Leo, turning 8 next month. I wasn't ready to leave him. I had only one person left who could help. My daughter Lisa. The thought of asking her felt like another kind of death. Driving home, the familiar streets looked alien. The world had tilted on its axis. Everything was the same, but I was different. I was a dead man driving. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. I parked in my driveway. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the peeling paint on my front door. I had always been the provider, the strong one. Asking for help, especially from Lisa, felt like a failure. It felt like begging. Lisa lived a different life. She married Richard, a slick real estate developer. They lived in a mansion across the city, a house of glass and steel that always felt cold to me. They ran in circles where money flowed like water. $50,000 was pocket change for them, or so I thought. I walked inside. The silence of the empty house amplified the pounding in my chest. My heart was already failing. Now it was breaking too. I picked up the phone and dialed her number. My hand trembled. "Hello?" Lisa answered, her voice bright and breathless. I heard upbeat music and chatter in the background. A party. Of course. "Lisa, honey, it's Dad." "Dad, hi, you caught me at a crazy time." She didn't sound happy. She sounded interrupted. "I'm meeting with the event planner for Leo's birthday. You won't believe the ideas they have." Her excitement felt sharp against my dread. It felt wrong. "Lisa, I need to talk to you. It's important." "Okay, shoot, but make it quick. The caterer is calling on the other line." "Make it quick." My life was on the line, and she needed me to make it quick. The caterer was waiting. Priorities. I took a deep breath. I was at the doctor's today. "It's my heart, Lisa. It's bad. I need surgery. A specialized one." There was a brief pause. "Surgery? Oh, Dad. That sounds serious." Her tone didn't change. It was the same tone she used when I told her my car needed new tires. Flat, uninterested. as if I was just another item on her checklist. "It is serious," I emphasized. "The doctor said without it, I have about 6 months." Another pause. This one felt colder. 6 months? Dad, that's terrible. Still flat, but you'll get the surgery, right? Your insurance is good. She wasn't getting it. Or maybe she was, and she just didn't care. The realization chilled me to the bone. That's the problem. They won't cover this specific procedure. I hated the desperation creeping into my voice. I hated how weak I sounded. It cost $50,000. I finally said it. The price of my life. Lisa, I don't have it. I need your help. Alone, please. The silence on the other end stretched, thick and uncomfortable. I heard a muffled sound, Richard's voice, asking who she was talking to. Then Lisa came back on. Her voice was tight now. Defensive, the bright tone was gone, replaced by cold calculation. 50,000? Dad? That's an astronomical amount of money. Astronomical. For them, it was a weekend trip, a new watch. I know, honey, but it's my life. My voice cracked. I was pleading for my survival, pleading with my own daughter. Dad, you don't understand the expenses we have. She sighed heavily. It was the sound of someone burdened by too much wealth. It was grotesque. Richard's projects are leveraged right now. Our cash flow is incredibly tight. Leveraged. Cash flow. Words she used to distance herself from the reality of my situation. Words she used to build a wall between us. And Leo's birthday, she continued, her voice shifting. We've already paid the deposits. I froze. Did she just say what I thought she said? Leo's birthday? I whispered. A chill spread through my chest. It had nothing to do with my heart condition. It was the cold realization of her priorities, and I wasn't one of them. Yes, we're doing a superhero training academy theme. She was excited now. Her voice lifted again. We rented out the entire convention center downtown. We hired actors, stunt coordinators, a special effects team. She was talking faster now, bragging about the extravagance, oblivious to the devastation she was causing. She was planning a party while I was planning my funeral. We're even having a custom comic book made with Leo as the star, she added proudly. How much, Lisa? I asked. My voice was hollow, empty. How much is this party costing you? She hesitated. It's complicated. It's not just a party, Dad. It's an event. An event. My death was an inconvenience. Her son's birthday was an event. Richard's biggest investors will be there, she explained. It's about networking, maintaining our image. Image. The superficiality of it was staggering. Her image was more important than my life. How much? I demanded. Around 100,000, she said quickly, dismissively. Maybe a little more, but the deposits are non-refundable, Dad. We can't just cancel it. $100,000. Twice the amount needed to save my life, for a party he wouldn't even remember in a year. The betrayal wasn't a knife. It was acid, burning away 40 years of love and sacrifice, burning away the image I had of my daughter. Lisa, I said, the breath leaving my lungs, you're telling me you can spend $100,000 on a party, but you can't lend your father $50,000 to keep him alive. The words hung there. Ugly, true, undeniable. Lend, Dad, be realistic. She snapped, her voice sharp with annoyance. I was a bad investment. When would you ever pay it back? On your pension? We'd essentially be giving you the money, and we just can't afford it right now. She couldn't afford to save my life, but she could afford a superhero training academy. The absurdity was suffocating. So you're choosing this party over me? It wasn't a question, it was a death sentence. Don't be dramatic, Dad, she scoffed. The cruelty was stunning. There have to be other options. Can't they do the cheaper surgery? It's too risky. Miller said, doctors always push the most expensive options, she interrupted. They're salesmen, Dad. Get a second opinion. She was negotiating my life like it was a used car. Or take out a reverse mortgage on the house, she suggested brightly. You have equity, don't you? She wanted me to mortgage my home. The house filled with memories of Mary. She wanted me to risk everything rather than dip into her party fund. She was actively choosing her lifestyle over my existence. The realization was devastating, but also clarifying. I see, I said. My voice was suddenly steady, cold. The desperation was gone, replaced by a chilling clarity. Don't worry about it, Lisa. Enjoy the event. I hung up the phone before she could respond. I stared at the wall. The ticking of the grandfather clock was the only sound. It sounded like a countdown. I was alone. I was going to die because my daughter needed a superhero training academy. The next few days were a blur of despair. I sat in my armchair, the weight of my impending death pressing down on me. The silence of the house was deafening. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just waited for the end. Should I go to her house? Should I beg? The humiliation would be unbearable. But wasn't survival worth any price? No. I still had my dignity. I would not grovel before my own daughter. I would not give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I started looking through my finances, searching for something, anything. The numbers mocked me with their inadequacy. I was a poor man with a rich daughter. The irony was bitter. Then I remembered the attic. Mary and I had stored everything up there. Old clothes, broken furniture, boxes of memories, and my father's things. My father had been a quiet man, much like me, but he had one passion, one secret obsession. Rare coins. He spent decades collecting them. When he died, I inherited the collection. I had packed it away.
I never had it appraised. I assumed it was a hobbyist's collection, worth more in sentimental value than monetary. I hoped, desperately, that I was wrong. I climbed the narrow stairs to the attic. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light. The air was hot and still. I found the heavy wooden chest tucked away in a corner. I dragged it downstairs. My breath caught in my chest from the exertion. My failing heart protested the effort. I collapsed onto the sofa, gasping for air. I didn't have much time. When I recovered, I opened the lid. Inside were dozens of albums, filled with coins in protective sleeves, each one labeled in my father's precise handwriting. I spent the rest of the day researching online, analyzing data, tracking details. The more I researched, the more my heart pounded. Not from the stenosis, from the hope. A dangerous, terrifying hope. There were silver dollars worth thousands, gold pieces worth even more. My father hadn't just been a hobbyist. He had been a serious collector, and then I found it, tucked away in a separate velvet box. A small, unassuming coin, a 1943 copper penny. I remembered the story. During World War II, pennies were supposed to be made of steel. Copper was needed for the war effort. But a few copper ones were minted by mistake. They were incredibly rare, a legend among collectors. I looked it up. The value was astronomical. My hands trembled as I held the coin. It held the weight of my future. My father, the quiet clerk, had left me a fortune, hidden in plain sight. He had saved me, even from beyond the grave, while my own daughter had left me to die. The next morning, I needed an expert. I looked up coin dealers. One advertisement jumped out. Sharp's Rare Coins. We paid top dollar, fast cash. I called him. Mr. Sharp was slick, fast-talking. He agreed to come to my house immediately when I mentioned the 1943 copper penny. He sensed the urgency in my voice. He sensed the desperation. He arrived an hour later in a shiny black sedan. He was a large man in an expensive suit that was slightly too tight. He smelled of strong cologne and greed. I called him the Vulture. He spent an hour looking through the collection. His eyes darted around the room, assessing my peeling paint, my worn furniture, my vulnerability. He knew I needed money, fast. He examined the copper penny last. He scrutinized it under a loupe. He didn't bother with the magnet test. I think he knew it was real. I could see the flicker of excitement in his eyes. But he quickly masked it. It's a nice collection, Mr. Harrison, he said, leaning back in his chair, trying to look casual. A lot of sentimental value, I'm sure. But the market is soft right now. Very soft. He was lying. I knew it from my research. The coin market was booming, but he thought I was ignorant. He thought I was desperate. He was right about the desperation, but wrong about the ignorance. The copper penny, I said, my voice trembling slightly. It's authentic, isn't it? It appears so, he said dismissively. But the condition isn't great. A lot of wear and tear. He tapped the coin with his thick finger. A gesture of disrespect. Best I can do for the whole collection, including the penny,
is $20,000. Cash. Today, $20,000. It was a fraction of what the penny alone was worth. He was trying to steal my inheritance, my lifeline. He was trying to profit from my impending death. The desperation turned into anger, a cold, hard anger I hadn't felt in years. The same anger I felt when Lisa dismissed my life. "Get out," I said, my voice low. Sharp looked stunned. He wasn't used to being refused. He wasn't used to his victims fighting back. "Mr. Harrison, be reasonable. That's a very generous offer. You won't get a better one," I said. "Get out." I stood up, towering over him. The quiet clerk was gone, replaced by a man fighting for his life. Sharp hesitated, then packed up his things and left. The smell of his cheap cologne lingered in the air, a reminder of how close I came to losing everything. Again, I needed a second opinion, a reputable dealer, someone honest. I found a listing for Evans Numismatics, an old, established firm. I called them. Miss Evans was professional, courteous. She agreed to see me the next day at her office. The contrast with Sharp was stark. Her office was elegant, understated. It smelled of old wood and polish. Miss Evans was a woman in her late 50s, sharp eyes, a calm demeanor. She treated the coins with reverence, like historical artifacts, not just commodities. She spent hours examining the collection, meticulously documenting each coin. She performed the magnet test on the copper penny. It didn't stick. She looked up at me, her expression serious. "Mr. Harrison, this is extraordinary. The copper penny is authentic and in remarkable condition." "How much?" I asked, breathless. At auction, the penny alone would fetch at least $80,000. The entire collection, perhaps $200,000. $200,000? I felt a wave of relief so strong it made my knees weak. I sat down, tears welling up in my eyes. I wasn't going to die. "I need the money quickly," I explained. "I have a medical situation." Miss Evans nodded sympathetically. "I understand. I can offer you a fair price for the entire collection. $150,000. Immediate wire transfer. It was less than the auction value, but it was fair, and it was life. "I'll take it," I said. That afternoon, the money was in my account, $150,000. I stared at the number on the screen. I had saved myself. I called Dr. Miller. "Doc, schedule the surgery." The surgery was a success. I woke up feeling raw and weak, but alive. The rhythmic beep of the heart monitor sounded different now. It wasn't a countdown anymore. It sounded like a second chance. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital recovering. I was alone. The room was quiet. Lisa never called, never visited. I assumed she was too busy with her dent. The Superhero Training Academy. Too busy spending the money that almost cost me my life. The thought left a bitter taste in my mouth. My neighbor, Eleanor, visited me once. She was an elderly widow, a friend of Mary's. She brought flowers and a worried look. "Thomas, dear," she said, her voice filled with concern. "I haven't seen Lisa or Richard around. Do they know you're here? They know you're here?" "They know," I said, my voice tight. "They're busy." Eleanor frowned, but didn't pry. She updated me on the neighborhood gossip. Then her face darkened, and I knew something terrible was coming. "I was at a charity gala last night," she said, lowering her voice. "For the Heart Foundation." I stiffened. A charity gala for heart patients. While her own father was lying in a hospital bed with a failing heart, the hypocrisy was staggering. "They were hosting a table," Eleanor continued, her voice trembling with indignation, "flaunting their wealth. Richard was showing off a new Rolex. Lisa was wearing a diamond necklace that must have cost a fortune." I closed my eyes. The image burned, but that wasn't the worst part. The real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. "And then I saw it," she said, leaning closer. Her eyes filled with disgust. "There was a young woman there, a volunteer, going table to table, collecting donations." Eleanor paused, taking a shaky breath. She approached Lisa's table. She explained that she herself had undergone heart surgery as a child, thanks to the Foundation's help. "And what did Lisa do?" I asked, dreading the answer. I knew my daughter, but I didn't know the monster she had become. Lisa looked at her, this sweet young woman, as if she were a cockroach. Eleanor recounted. The girl asked for a donation. Any amount would help. I braced myself. I knew it would be bad, but I didn't expect the level of cruelty that followed. Lisa laughed, Eleanor said. A cold, cruel sound. It made my skin crawl. The whole room went quiet. She opened her purse. Eleanor continued, her voice shaking with anger, pulled out $100 bill, and held it out to the girl. The girl reached for it, relief washing over her face. But Lisa didn't give it to her, Eleanor said, her eyes filling with tears. She pulled it back at the last second, and then she delivered the final blow, the words that shattered my heart more than the stenosis ever could. And she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Eleanor whispered, if you want this money, you have to earn it. Tell me, how pathetic does it feel to beg? The girl burst into tears, humiliated, devastated. And Richard? I whispered, feeling sick. He just smirked, Eleanor said. And Lisa, she looked around the room, basking in the attention. The shock, she enjoyed it. Thomas. She enjoyed breaking that poor girl's spirit. In that moment, everything shifted. My daughter wasn't just selfish. She was sadistic. She found pleasure in the suffering of others. She enjoyed watching people beg, just like she enjoyed watching me beg for my life. Any lingering love I had for Lisa died. It curdled into cold, hard resolve. I was done. The connection was broken, irreparably. When I was discharged, I went back to my house. It was no longer a home. It was a museum of a life I no longer wanted, a life where I was weak, disposable. I thought about Leo, my grandson. He was innocent. Leaving him behind felt like another betrayal. Could I stay, just for him? But I knew I couldn't. The toxicity of Lisa and Richard would poison any relationship I tried to have with him. They would use him against me. I had to make a clean break. For my own survival, I packed a small bag. I took the remaining money from the coin sale, nearly $100,000. I wrote a short note for Lisa. I taped it to the front door. Lisa, I am alive, no thanks to you. You made your choice. Don't look for me. Thomas. It was cold, final, just like her refusal. I called a realtor. I told her to sell the house and everything in it. And the proceeds? She asked. I thought about the young volunteer. I thought about her tears. Donate them, I said, to the Heart Foundation. A final act of defiance, a cleansing fire. I disappeared. I traveled across the country, to a small, quiet town in the Pacific Northwest. A place surrounded by ocean and mountains. A place where no one knew me. I changed my name legally. I was no longer Thomas Harrison. I was Tom Rivers, the quiet man who lived by the sea. I had a significant nest egg, but I knew I needed to make it grow. I needed a purpose. I needed security, the kind of security that didn't depend on anyone else. I remembered my years as a government clerk, decades analyzing data, tracking trends. I had always been fascinated by the stock market, but I never had the capital to invest. Now I did. I was terrified. This was the money that was supposed to sustain me for the rest of my life. If I lost it, I would have nothing. I decided on a middle ground. Calculated risks, smart investments. I wouldn't gamble my future. I would build it. I started small. I spent months researching companies, analyzing financials. I immersed myself in the world of finance. It was a distraction, a challenge, a way to reclaim my power. I met a man named Mark Jensen at a local diner. He was reading the Wall Street Journal. I struck up a conversation. Mark was a retired broker. Cynical, world-weary, but brilliant. He recognized my analytical mind. He took me under his wing. He told me his own story of betrayal and recovery. He understood my need for independence. The market is a beast, Tom, he told me, swirling the coffee in his cup. But it rewards patience and discipline. and it doesn't care about your past. It only cares about the future. I invested wisely, diversifying my portfolio, focusing on long-term growth, and something surprising happened. I was good at it. Very good. My investments flourished. The quiet clerk who had spent his life processing paperwork had a knack for understanding the market. The numbers spoke to me. 6 years passed. I was 71 now. My heart was strong. My life was peaceful, and I was wealthy. I owned a beautiful house overlooking the ocean. My portfolio was worth millions. The man who couldn't afford a $50,000 surgery was now a millionaire. The irony was not lost on me. I had built a new life, a better life, from the ashes of the old one. I rarely thought of Lisa. The memory of her betrayal was a scar, faded but still there. Sometimes I would see a grandfather playing with his grandson on the beach, and a pang of sadness would hit me. I missed Leo. He would be 14 now. A teenager. I wondered what kind of person he was becoming, raised by those monsters. Had they corrupted him, or was he strong enough to resist? The temptation to reach out to Leo was overwhelming, but the fear of Lisa finding me held me back. Was I protecting myself, or was I being a coward? It was a question that haunted my sleepless nights. I lived a quiet life. I volunteered at the local library. I had a small circle of friends, including Mark, people who knew me only as Tom Rivers. The loneliness was a constant companion. The success felt hollow without anyone to share it with. I often wondered if I had done the right thing. Had I been too harsh? Was forgiveness possible? But then the memory of Lisa's cruel laughter at the gala would return. The image of the young volunteer, tears streaming down her face, and the resolve would harden again. Some things are unforgivable. Then the past came knocking. I was reading the financial news, a habit I had maintained over the years. One day a headline caught my eye. Real estate mogul Richard Sterling, charged with massive fraud. I clicked on the article. My blood ran cold. A picture of Richard, looking smug and arrogant, stared back at me. Richard's empire was built on lies, a massive Ponzi scheme. He had been defrauding investors of millions. The same investors who had attended Leo's extravagant birthday party. The same investors Lisa had prioritized over my life. The scandal was spectacular. Their assets were frozen. The mansion, the cars, the social status, the image Lisa valued so much, all gone. They were bankrupt, destroyed. I felt a strange sense of vindication. The karma was undeniable. A few weeks later, a follow-up article. Richard had made bail and disappeared, vanished. He had drained their hidden accounts and left Lisa and Leo with nothing. He abandoned them, just like Lisa had abandoned me, betrayed by the very man she had chosen over me. The irony was bitter, almost poetic. Life had taught her a hard lesson. A lesson in loyalty. A lesson in consequence. I felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness, and a deep concern for Leo. I knew it was only a matter of time. She would find me. She always did when she needed something. It was a rainy Tuesday morning, 6 years to the day since Dr. Miller had given me 6 months to live. I was sitting in my study. The doorbell rang. I knew who it was. I walked to the front door and opened it. A woman stood on the porch, drenched from the rain. She looked haggard, older than her years. Her clothes were cheap, wrinkled. Her hair, once perfectly styled, was dull and messy. It took me a moment to recognize her. It was Lisa. She stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief, as if she had seen a ghost. "Dad," she whispered. Her voice choked with emotion. I said nothing. I just watched her, my face impassive. The man she knew was gone. I felt nothing. No anger, no pity. Just a cold, empty void. "It is you," she sobbed, rushing forward, arms outstretched, as if she expected me to embrace her, to comfort her. I stepped back, the threshold of my home a barrier she could not cross. Not yet. Maybe never. "Hello, Lisa." My voice was flat, emotionless. She stopped, confused by my coldness. The warmth she expected was gone. "Dad, I've been looking for you for years. How could you just leave? I thought you were dead." The accusation hung in the air. Even now, she was the victim. Even now, it was my fault. You left me to die, Lisa. Remember? I said quietly. The $50,000, the superhero training academy. She flinched as if I had struck her. The memory stung. Good. Dad, I know I made a mistake. She pleaded. I was wrong. I was so sorry. Sorry she got caught. Sorry she lost everything. But was she sorry for what she did me? I doubted it. What do you want, Lisa? I asked, cutting to the chase. I need your help. Of course she did. I led her into the living room. The house was warm, comfortable, luxurious, everything she had lost. I sat in my armchair. She sat opposite me, perched on the edge of the sofa, fidgeting like a nervous applicant. The power dynamic had shifted. I was no longer the supplicant. I was the judge. Talk, I said. She broke down, a torrent of tears and confessions. Richard's betrayal, the bankruptcy, the humiliation, the loss of status. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar, but I wasn't buying it. He left us with nothing, Dad, she sobbed. Worse than nothing. Massive debt. They took everything. We're homeless, she whispered, the shame evident in her voice. We've been living in a shelter. A shelter. The woman who laughed at a volunteer asking for donations was now dependent on charity herself. The irony was sharp. The justice was poetic. She looked around the room, taking in the luxury surrounding me, the artwork, the view of the ocean. Her eyes widened with realization and greed. You're wealthy, she said, awe mixed with envy. I am. Please, Dad, she begged, reaching out her hand. The desperation was real this time. I need money, just enough to get back on our feet. She paused, then played her trump card. For Leo, he's struggling. He doesn't understand what happened. Using Leo as leverage, as a shield. It was despicable, but predictable. Where is Leo? I asked, my voice softening slightly. He was the only innocent victim in this tragedy. He's waiting in the car, she said quickly, eager to use him as a pawn. I didn't want to overwhelm you. Lies. She didn't want me to see him until she secured the money. How much do you need? I asked. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. She thought she had won. She thought I was still the weak, forgiving father she remembered, the pushover. She didn't see Tom Rivers. $200,000, she said without hesitation. Just enough to clear the immediate debts and start over. $200,000, 4 times the amount she refused me to save my life. The audacity was breathtaking. I leaned back in my chair, the silence, heavy in the room. The rain lashed against the windows, the sound echoing the storm raging inside me. I thought about the 1943 copper penny. I thought about the lonely recovery in the hospital. I thought about the young volunteer at the gala, her face streaked with tears. Lisa's cruel laughter. How pathetic does it feel to beg? Now it was my turn to teach her a harder lesson. A lesson in humility, a lesson in consequence, a lesson in reality. No, I said quietly. She stared at me, stunned. The hope vanished, replaced by disbelief and fear. What? I said no. I repeated, my voice firm. I will not give you the money. But, Dad, I'm desperate, she pleaded. I have nowhere else to go. I remember being desperate too, Lisa, I said, my voice cold. I remember begging my daughter to save my life. And I remember her telling me she couldn't. I continued, because she had a party to pay for. A superhero training academy. Dad, please. I was wrong, she screamed, her sorrow turning to anger. The mask slipping, the monster revealing itself. I was selfish. I admit it. The confession was loud, but hollow. You weren't just selfish, Lisa, I said, my voice rising. You were cruel. You were cold. You valued luxury over life. My life, and you found pleasure in the suffering of others. I added, the accusation hitting its mark. I told her what Eleanor had witnessed at the gala. The volunteer, the begging, the laughter. She paled, her eyes widening in horror. You knew about that? She whispered. I knew what kind of person you would become, and I realized something. Family isn't about blood, it's about loyalty. It's about love. It's about compassion. You showed me none of those things. So you're just going to abandon me? Let me suffer, she screamed, her face twisted in rage, the entitlement returning. I didn't abandon you, Lisa. I roared, the anger I had suppressed for years finally erupting. You abandoned me. You chose money over me. Now you have to live with the consequences. The truth was ugly, but it needed to be said. You're cruel, she spat. You're a cruel, heartless old man. Maybe I am, I said, my voice low. But I learned from the best. I stood up and walked to my desk. I pulled out a piece of paper and a pen. I wrote down an address and a phone number. I handed it to her. What's this? She asked, confused. A job opportunity, I said calmly. The local cannery is hiring. They need workers on the assembly line. Cleaning fish, I continued. Packing cans, minimum wage, long hours, hard work. She stared at the paper, horrified. A cannery? You want me to work in a cannery? The disgust in her voice was palpable. Yes, I said. You need money. I'm offering you a path forward. You need to learn the value of $1, Lisa, and the cost of humility. I told her I had already spoken to the supervisor, Maria Sanchez, a tough but fair woman. Maria expects you to show up tomorrow at 5 a.m., I said. Don't be late. She looked at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. She stood up so fast the sofa rocked. How dare you, she whispered. How dare you humiliate me like this? It's not humiliation, Lisa, I said calmly. It's reality. It's the reality I lived while you were planning your parties and laughing at the less fortunate. It's the reality you created. I walked towards the front door and opened it. The rain was still pouring down. There's a small apartment complex near the cannery, I said. It's cheap, clean, and safe. I will pay the first month's rent. After that, you're on your own. It was a lifeline made of sandpaper, rough, abrasive, but necessary. I paused, looking at her one last time. The daughter I once adored, the stranger she had become. And Leo, I said, my voice softening. I will take care of him. I will enroll him in the local school. I will provide for him. But only if you accept the job, I added. The condition clear. Only if you start rebuilding your life. Honestly, humbly. The choice was hers. She stared at me, speechless. This was not the rescue she had expected. Her pride fought with her desperation. Finally, desperation won. Okay, Dad, she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. I accept. She walked out into the rain. Her shoulders slumped in defeat, but also, perhaps, in acceptance. She didn't look back. I watched her go. I saw Leo sitting in the passenger seat of the beat-up car, his face pale and scared. My heart ached for him. He didn't deserve this, the innocent casualty of his parents' greed. I walked out onto the porch, the cold rain hitting my face. I felt a profound sadness, a deep ache in my chest. The ache of a father who had lost his daughter not once, but twice. First to greed, then to reality. But I felt no regret. I looked up at the gray sky. The storm clouds starting to break. The sun beginning to peek through. A glimmer of light in the darkness. I thought about Mary. I knew she would have wanted me to show compassion. But she also would have wanted me to teach Lisa the lesson she needed to learn. The lesson of empathy. The lesson of redemption. This wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. The painful, necessary surgery on my daughter's soul. A surgery far more complex than the one on my heart. It wouldn't be easy. The road ahead would be long and hard. But for the first time in 6 years, I felt a glimmer of hope. Hope for Leo. And maybe, just maybe, hope for Lisa too. I walked back inside, ready to welcome my grandson home, to give him the life he deserved. The lesson was over. The healing had begun. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.